Hi everybody, Carol Garrison with Carol's Creative Escape. It is time for another Make It Monday. Today is April 29th. We are almost done with April and heading into May here very quickly. I am so glad that you're joining me tonight, and even if you're catching this on a replay, I say thank you so much for that. It means a lot to me that you're taking time out of what I'm sure are busy schedules in order to watch my videos each week, and I really do appreciate it. I am an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from White Bear Lake, Minnesota, and I have been making cards for over 30 years, primarily using Stampin' Up! Products for the last probably 10, 11 years of that time. Hi, Kay. Thanks so much for joining in tonight. My goal is to simply spread joy one card at a time, and that could either be by actually mailing a card that I've made, or helping somebody watching this video figure out they can do creative things and give them joy by allowing them, showing them how to create pretty cards. And so that's really just my goal tonight. And I am, I don't really have much to say. It was a gray, rainy weekend here, so I actually spent most of Saturday working my day job. While I was at least at home and able to look out a window, which I can't do where I work. And then Sunday we ran a few errands and got some stuff done, but not a very eventful week to report back on. We got kind of another rainy day week, but we are grateful here, at least in Minnesota, that we've avoided the stormy weather that's been blowing through many other parts of the country. So for that, I am grateful. And without further ado, why don't we go ahead and start flipping our camera around here and we'll get started. Just a moment here. I apologize in advance for the jerks and the jiggles and the lovely view of my ceiling. There we go. This is always kind of the test on where I get my camera stand set up so that I'm showing my whole screen here. Just always takes me a little bit of time. I actually have marks on my desk even, but it just seems like of late that I haven't been hitting the mark very well. So let me clear off my fancy camera stand there as I make the switch. And I am going to get some light as well. Hopefully we don't have too bad a shadow. And you know what? My inspiration for tonight's card came from a birthday card I got almost a year ago. And this came from one of my fellow stamping friends, Anita. Stamping Friends Anita. And I have hung on to it because I was intrigued with the fold. I wasn't sure how to make it. And this weekend I was clearing off my desk and came across this again and said, you know what, tonight's the night. So what I like about this card is it fits in a regular envelope. It's got some detail just with that slant or the angle thing. And then when you open it up, it kind of explodes into this pretty card. And so I'm going to show you how to make this. Now, I am using regular cardstock. You might want to consider doing the thick white cardstock. This feels to me like it's just the regular cardstock. And so regular basic white cardstock, but it's up to you to decide. But I'm going to show you how to make this card. So let me move my things away. The card tonight is going to feature this Simply Zinnia. I know I've been using it a lot, but gosh, I just love this set and the brightness of the colors. I'm using the embossing folder and, of course, some of the designer series paper, a few of the stamps. And most importantly, if you remember when I first showed you this, I said there were some sequins. Currently, they are back ordered, so I'm going to give you that. Heads up, but I told you I got them and I couldn't find them and I couldn't find them. I finally found them and I cannot blame the cats like I had hoped to be able to do. This was they got stuck in something else. So these are adhesive backed sequins and kind of the Melon Mambo, maybe Flirty Flamingo here. They really do change color a little bit. Granny Apple Green and Lemon Lolly, but honestly I think if you put them up to similar colors, these will work with Berry Burst. These will definitely work with, I think, the new peach color that's out. You know, just test it and see, because there, even in here, there are some that are a different color when I look at it. Like these look to be more gray. This is more pink. That's more yellow. Here's some that are greenish in colors. So don't be afraid to kind of experiment a little bit. But I'm finally going to use these tonight too. So I'm excited about that. So as I put this card together or started practicing it, it took a little bit for me to figure out measurements and things like that. I'm not even sure what this fold is called. And honestly, I couldn't find anything where I could attribute the name or actually get the measurements. So I used the beautiful card I got from Anita, and I figured out the measurements off of that. So you may find that there's a simpler way to do some of what I'm showing you, but just know that this is what worked for me, and hopefully it'll work for you as well. So to start with, and I actually had an aha moment tonight. First in figuring out this card, but also one of the things I want is this angle, and I want it to be the same on both ends, going the same direction. And I tell you, I go through more cardstock trying to figure that out. So I'm going to share with you my aha moment. Here is the template for this card. And I initially tried doing tick marks right off of my cutter, and I found it was easier to kind of go the old-fashioned way and just do it with a ruler and a pencil. So what we've got here is a piece of cardstock that measures 4 1/4 by 9 3/4. And you're just going to make a little tick mark at 3 3/8 on both sides, and again at 7 5/8 on both sides. And then finally at the very top, make a little tick mark at 2 1/8. I'm going to leave this here for a second if you want to grab a quick picture. I realize that maybe some of the measurements don't show up so well. Maybe if I fold it down. But again, this is 2 1/8. These two are 7 5/8, just a little tick mark. And these two are 3 3/8 with a little tick mark. And then you're just going to score at 5 1/2. And then you're just going to score from this tick mark to this tick mark, and this one to this one. And if all your measurements are right, it all will cross kind of right in the middle here. And then the designer series paper piece that you need is 3 by 4. And then you will also need 2 pieces of cardstock that are 2 3/4 by 2 3/4. And then for my card that I made tonight, I've also got a piece of basic white cardstock that measures 2 1/2 by 2 1/2. It really kind of just depends on what you're going to do with your card. So I wanted to show you how I did this, because sometimes it is easier to be shown things like this. So I just got my trusty ruler, and I've already got my piece of cardstock that is 9 3/4 inches. And what I did was put my ruler up just right to the edge of my cardstock. For some reason, I'm struggling doing that right now, but right to the edge of the cardstock. And then I just put a tick mark at 3 3/8. It's there. You can barely see it, but I do have one. And then again at 7 5/8. And then I this time put my ruler just kind of right up to the edge this way, and repeated my measurements at 3 3/8 and 7 5/8. I found I got a much more accurate measurement doing it this way. If there's something else that works for you, go for it. And then again, I've just got this little one at 2 1/8. And part of the reason I kind of like doing it at the edge like this is it allowed me to get right up to the edge for my tick marks. There's no other reason than that. So then the next thing that we're going to do is I'm going to come back in with my, you could either use your scoring tool, or in this case, I'm just going to use my cutter that has all the measurements on it. And so I'm going to start. Now, one thing I do need to know is 3 3/8. All right. I want to make sure that the 3 3/8 is on the piece where I make the score line at 5 1/2 inches, because this side's going to be a little shorter. Otherwise your folds are going to be a little funny. Does that make sense? So, yep, I'm going to just run my scoring blade right across there. So I've got my 5.5 inch. And now what I need to do is line up this tick mark here with this tick mark right here, just in the gutter. Okay? And I'm going to run it through like that. And then I'm going to flip or just rotate it and do the same thing. So I've got my tick mark here and my tick mark here. And I'm going to run my scoring tool that way. And so this gives me that star going right across the middle here. And then to cut this square, I am simply going to line up my cutter with that tick mark and this tick mark. And sometimes when I'm doing cuts like this, I do like to put my blade in the middle and press down so that in case I catch it, it doesn't slip or anything like that and mess up this cut line. So we're just going to run that through like that. And then I'm going to repeat on this side. Start at that tick mark, rotate it. Basically, I just want both these pieces in the gutter or groove where my cutter is going to go. And get them lined up, and then repeat that cut. And that gives me the square. Got a couple, these are scraps that I do not keep when they're that size. And then I'm going to come through and just lightly, maybe if I can find my eraser. There it is. And I'm going to erase my tick marks. And I'm only doing that now because I don't want to forget about it later. Did that one at the top a little bit darker than I intended. If the tick marks really bother you, you can erase it and then just kind of flip the card over and use the other side as your front. Okay, so we got this part done. Then the next thing we're going to do is put in all our score lines. And so we're going to fold, because this one's pretty straightforward. We'll burnish it right at that 5.5 inch mark. And then we can fold this over and we'll burnish that. I think you can start to see some of this take into play here. We're going to score along here or burnish along there. And then one of the things that I like to do when I've got a card that's going to be folded multiple directions, I like to fold it backwards and re-burnish all those score lines that way. That kind of breaks the fiber down and makes it more bendy. Okay, so that now gives us the base of the card. These two pieces fold in, this will fold down. And here, if you need to do a little tweaking to get it straight, this is the time to do that, because we're going to come back through and do one last burnishing here and here. And again, I'm going to flip it over. And now I've got pretty good creases going here and it all pops open. And so that is the base of our card. It looks more complicated than it is, so I'm hoping that what I just shared with you makes that part easy. So let's now come in and we're going to do some stamping, but I want to show you my other aha moment. So like I said, I wanted the same angle on both sides. And when I put this one in, I had it, how did I have it? I don't remember. I had it like this point was in and this was at 1/4 inch. And I slid it, something like that. But then I struggle, how am I going to get the same angle? Well, you know what? If you take and flip it over, All right, nope, see, I'm struggling now. That's going to be the same. So if I flip it the opposite direction and do, well, shoot, now I can't tell you. Yep, like that. So if I flip it over after I've made the first cut so that the opposite side is placed in the same spot. So I had one corner here and one corner here. And then, fingers crossed, when I make that cut, they're both going the same direction. So basically this first one I cut on this side at the angle that I wanted, and then I flip it over and I come back and repeat using the same measurements, and that gives me the same angle. I might have just confused you more on that, but I apologize. All right, so let's get some stamping done now. I have a piece of basic white. This is just a scrap, as was that I cut down to size. Sometimes when I'm putting sentiments on, I will measure them to figure out just how much I need if I'm going to be stamping it right on a piece of paper like this. And basically I just take the length of the stamp and the width of the stamp, and then I add a 1/4 inch or something maybe. So I'm going to take my Melon Mambo and I'm going to ink it up. And this is from the Simply Zinnia stamp set. Words fail to express my gratitude. And that sentiment is going to be going on the front. And so if I measured right, I should just be able to get this in here. There we go. Phew, stamping number 1 is done. And then I did cut, like I told you, this piece of basic white paper, and I'm going to stamp on the inside, "Thank you so much." And remember, this piece is going to go on the card in this direction. So when I stamp my sentiment, I want to make sure I'm going this way so that it's not all wonky on the card. So just make sure that you kind of visualize it before you start stamping. And this one I'm going to put right here. And again, I tend to put especially my sentiments, but most of my stamps are going to go on my blocks crooked on purpose, because then I really focus on the stamp as opposed to the block. The next thing I'm going to do is stamp this zinnia flower, and I am choosing to stamp this in Melon Mambo. I am going to be using my blends, so I might get a little bit of smearing. These are technically water-based as opposed to alcohol-based, so they should work with the blends, but they don't always, and so that just is something to keep in mind. And then the next thing I want to do is come in and share this little scrap using my Mossy Meadow to stamp out a set of leaves. I am going to be doing some blends coloring. Oh, we're going to get the cat hair off of that. And we'll just stamp that piece right there. Now these both have coordinating dies, so we will be working with those. And now I'm going to bring my blends in. I want to use a little bit of Melon Mambo and a little bit of not rich raspberry, the Berry Burst to color my flower. And then I'm going to use Granny Apple Green to color my leaves. And that's because I'm going to sort of imitate this flower a little bit. That also means I need my Lemon Lolly. And it looks like a little pumpkin pie for the center. So I'll grab those two. And then, of course, whenever you're using blends, you want to make sure that you have scrap paper underneath. So for the flower, I'm going to start by coloring in these stars. Is that Lemon Lolly? Yep. Just a real quick. Because again, remember, I'm trying to sort of make it look like the paper a little bit, but not exactly. And then there's a little bit of orange in the middle here. It's not going to show up a whole lot. Maybe I'll use my darker orange, which is pumpkin pie. Just because I do have that melon mambo, which is going to be a darker color. And then I want to do the berry burst kind of on the bottom layers of the flower. And I'm just going to do this very top as melon mambo. Okay. That does two things for me. One is it gives me a little variation in color. And then two, I don't have to fuss too much with the shading. What I may do is come in here and randomly do some lighter with my blends, you know, the lighter tone of the berry burst. Right now I'm starting with the dark. That'll just give it a little variation in the coloring. But because I have stamped it in the Melon Mambo ink, I'm hoping that'll kind of come through a little bit. I think this one will go like that. And the rest we'll do in the light melon or light berry burst. And that should give it just a real subtle difference in color. And I'm really not getting much running or blurring of the Melon Mambo ink that I stamped in. So that makes me feel happy. And then I'm just going to come back in with my light and dark Melon Mambo and add, I need to start with this little end. And again, I'll do some dark, some light. Oh, that one I'm going to do because I just kind of drew over it. Not quite sure why that dark spot showed up, but that's all right. And this, you can really choose how you color it. I'm just sort of being random. I'm guessing if I were to do this card all over again, the color order would be different each time I made the card. Fill in some blanks there. And now I'm just coming in and filling in with the light Melon Mambo. And really that's how I'm trying to get the difference in color tone, is by using just the light and dark and not really worrying too much about shading it, blending it in, that kind of thing. I'm not always very good at that, and so I think when I do this, it actually makes my cards look a little better. But if you are one of those that can do some coloring and be really good with the shading, more power to you. All right, so that finishes my flower, and that does give it a little depth, a little definition. And then I am going to come back in and do Granny Apple Green in the background, mostly because I'm trying to sort of replicate what is on the paper. So I'm going to put a little bit of the dark kind of right where the lines are. And I'll come back and get my light color. And just fill in the rest of my flower, or my leaf. And that's it for the coloring. So now what I need to do, the buttons, I think people get intimidated because it always looks like you have to have so many of them. And it really just depends on what you're coloring. I think the last couple of weeks I've shown a lot. And so I have had a lot of color on it. But it isn't a necessity. You can make it as colorful or as simple as you want it to be. So we're going to start by making our sandwich. Now, if you've watched my videos, you know that I do try to stagger my plates a little bit. I've just found that with this smaller cut and emboss machine that it works better. So I'll show you what I mean by stagger. I'm going to put my plate, or my layer 1 and layer 2 plates together so they're lined up. I'm going to have my cutting space down a little bit lower on my plates, and then I just need to figure out, you like me, you some days just spot on, get it right away, and then other days you could turn it 500 times and still not get it, even though you know you've gone around. Sometimes I struggle with that. All right, there, I think I have it lined up. I always like to use a little bit of washi tape when I'm doing this, just to hold the dies in place. And then I need to get my leaf. And again, I'm going to put a little washi tape on there. And then when I put my final plate on top, that's where I'm going to stagger it. So I've got, you know, kind of a 1/2 inch from the edge of the first 2 plates to here. And that way when you're feeding it through, it all gets caught and rolls through nicely. Whereas it seems like sometimes when you stack them all up, it has a hard time kind of pushing through that thickness. All right. And now we can take this apart, and I think this washi tape I'm actually going to toss at this point. The stickiness is kind of worn its useful life out. But I found washi tape for the most part won't stick to your paper and stuff when you run it through your plates. And so that is why I choose to do that. Okay, so now I've got my floral images for the front of my card. I've got my 3x4 designer paper. I've got the inside diamond that I need. I have my outside sentiment. I've got this piece done. And the other 2 things that I haven't shown you yet are 2 squares that measure 2 3/4 by 2 3/4. Now, initially, I wasn't thinking when I, whoops, geez, I just had a, my blends are falling off, sorry. Wasn't really thinking clearly how I was going to decorate this. But I ended up with 2 pieces of just cardstock at 2 3/4 by 2 3/4. And I've run it through the fabulous Zinnia 3D embossing folder. And Zelda is making her weekly appearance into our video tonight. Are you all done now, Zelda? Huh? Okay. But I really like this, and I ended up deciding I was going to use both. The only thing I'm not sure is if I want it raised or debossed or embossed. And I think, honestly, this time I'm going to go with the smoother texture because I kind of want my flower that I just stamped to be the more the focal point. And so I am going to just adhere these 2 to the card front. Actually, I'm going to change my mind on that. Let's assemble these pieces first. So we can put our adhesive on the back of this piece. And I'm just going to center it in that square. Okay. And then I've got this piece right here. So we'll put some adhesive on the back of this. Now, this is one of those cards, if you don't like to write a lot, this is the perfect card for you, because I'm going to have very limited writing space. If you are one that wants to have room for writing a note, you could put another 3x4 piece of paper on the back here and have some space to write, but really this is all the writing space I'm going to have. So you do what suits you. I could have done a contrasting color up there, but I'm trying to kind of stick with that Melon Mambo, more monotone look. And because this is a 3D embossing folder, I am going to put more adhesive on there. And again, before you attach this, do make sure that your sentiment is facing the right direction. It's easier to do it before it's adhered, but now when I close it and open it up, I will see it go in the right direction. And then on the front, again, I'm going to adhere this piece. See how much better it works when you have a light touch and you check mark it? You don't have to keep going and trying to move that ink around. So now we're going to go like this. And again, I'm just centering that diamond piece. You know what? I want it to go, because it's going to be closed like this, and that's more the stem. I want to just make sure I'm putting it on in a way that makes sense with the pattern on here. Okay, so we're going to do that. And then I am going to pop the Zinnia up on dimensionals just to add a little pop to it. No other reason. And again, I'm using some dimensionals that were left over from a paper pumpkin kit, and I will go through and cut those edges and use every bit of it. Don't be afraid to do that. I want to make sure, I mean, I know it's just dimensionals and they're not the most expensive thing in the catalog, but why not use every bit of them that you can? All right, and then we're going to put this there. In hindsight, I probably could have done this in like a flirty flamingo, and it might have stood out just a little bit better, but again, I'm sticking with that monotone look. The leaves, I'm just going to put some adhesive on because they don't need to pop up too. And we'll just kind of stick them right there to add a little pop to that. And then the last thing we need to do is add our sentiment on here. And that I am just going to put on with adhesive. I don't need to pop that up. And we are done. There you go. Oh, no, we're not quite done. Remember those things I've been looking for? These sequins? We need to put some of these sequins on. So I'm going to grab my take your pick tool here. I have to put more putty in. All right. And let's add some of our sequins so that we have a little sparkle on here too. So grab, whoops, and put it there. And we can put another one down here. We might go a little bonkers with these sequins just because I've had to look for them so hard. We can take a yellow one and put it there. And maybe put a couple melon mambos up here. Seems like whenever I do sequins, it's always in groups of 3. I don't know why. I want those more angled from each other. More like that. There we go. Whew. Happy I got to use those finally. So there we have our finished card. And again, it's not one that requires you to put lots of notes, but if that was something you wanted to do, you could put that paper back here, the basic white. You know, you could even make it kind of that full square. And then you'd have lots of writing that you could do. If anybody knows what this fold is called, put it in the comments, because I really don't know. So I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and we'll give this fold a try. It is a lot of fun. Again, it's one of those that looks a lot harder than it is. A lot of fun folds are that way, but I like to be able to create cards that have a little bit of wow and flair to them, but aren't super hard to make. And I think this one fits that bill. So take care, everybody. Have a great week. We will see you a week from tonight. I am going away for the weekend for a little craft time with some of my friends, and hopefully I will come back with a few inspirations. Just a quick reminder too, it is April 29th of 2024, which means the annual catalog is soon to be expiring. They did refresh the clearance rack. There are some many fabulous products in this new catalog. So take a peek at what's on clearance and start making your list on that new catalog, and we will see you all next week. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.